With probably the best flashback in One Piece incoming, I wanted to get a video out just talking about different things surrounding Odin and the significance of the timeline and Oda choosing to make it 39 years. But first, there was a correction, right? And it was on Twitter by the official One Piece or Oda's staff, the official Twitter of Oda's staff, and they said that it was a mistake because even in the Viz translation, it said that it was going back to 39 years ago. That's where the flashback was taking place. However, it's been updated and the flashback is taking place 41 years ago. The significance of 41 years ago? Well, 41 years ago, it is still before the Gods Valley incident, but it's now 3 years before the Gods Valley incident as opposed to 1. It's not a major change, but 2 years is pretty significant, so I wanted to point that out before we started. It being 41 years now, it's like before Inuyasha was born, Nekomamushi was born, Shanks, Blackbeard, all these different things. So it's interesting that Oda decided to do this. Why he decided to change it from 39 to 41? Maybe the timeline didn't match up and make sense based on what Oda knows and we don't know about it yet. In regards to the length of time Odin was on Whitebeard's ship, the length of time he was on Roger's ship, because he's been pretty specific about things that happened in like Roger's timeline. I guess for it to make sense in the grand scheme of things, you have to have Odin and his life and whenever he left Wano, whenever he joined Whitebeard's ship to when he joined Roger's ship. You have to have it all match up. So maybe at that point he went back and looked at his notes. He was like, okay, well, no, it makes more sense for it to be 41 years ago. So there's a few things I want to talk about today. One of the things I like doing in One Piece because it's just so damn vast and there's a lot of information out there that we just can consume on like honestly a regular basis because there's so much out there. Chapter 820, I was recently rereading it and it's Cats and Dog Have a History, right? This is when Inuyasha was talking to Luffy and the guys about the Pirate King's crew. That's when they revealed that they accompanied Odin as his retainers and they rode the Moby Dick with him. So they were on Whitebeard's ship. Then they said from Whitebeard's ship, that's where Lord Odin was scouted by Roger. And then after they joined him. It's also weird now because they're saying that Odin was more of an apprentice back then like Shanks and Buggy. But when we saw Odin on Roger's ship, Odin didn't give off the air of an apprentice. He seemed like he was one of the senior members on the crew. And also now knowing that Odin was a division commander of Whitebeard, it would be kind of weird for him to go on Roger's ship and then be an apprentice. Like he goes from a division commander to an apprentice. But this is, I guess, taking things out of context a bit because it says in generational terms. So therefore, Odin was pretty young in comparison to the others on Roger's crew. Odin's age is something that I really can't wrap my head around or to come to terms to exactly how old he is. It's tough, right? We know he became a daimyo at 20. We're not sure exactly when he left Wano, and a lot of the timeline is kind of mixed up and confused. Something also significant from chapter 820 is the fact that Nekomamushi said that they did not join them on the trip to Raftel, even though they were following Odin. That's weird because we saw Shanks and Buggy on the ship when presumably that's the right after the voyage or right before the voyage, the final voyage to Raftel. So why they didn't join Odin, that's anybody's guess. One could presume that before the trip to Raftel, they stopped on Wano, and that's when Nekomamushi and Inuyasha, they went back to Wano. And that's when Odin actually saw the problems that was going on in Wano. That's why he mentioned it to the Roger pirate, saying that he has to take care of it by himself. Even in 820, they said that Odin had expressed doubts over the laws that kept, the nation closed. And of course, in the midst of all that, Kinemon and the retainers, they were just desperately trying to keep Odin in Wano because, of course, as a daimyo, you cannot leave Wano. Anyone that's like forbidden to leave the borders of Wano. So again, it's a lot, right? It's just a lot to kind of consume and take in and to make sense of, because then Odin goes on in chapter 959 and he says the isolation of Wano is deeply tied to the Kozuki clan's existence, and he says that time will come. Now, something that's wrapped into all this that hasn't been mentioned a lot is the fact that Momonosuke can actually speak to Zunisha. Going back and looking at this interaction with Zunisha when Zunisha was instructed to destroy Jack, Momonosuke could see through the eyes of Zunisha. I had completely forgotten that because Momonosuke could see exactly what was going on, how many people were with Jack, and exactly what Zunisha had to do to get rid of Jack. After that, Momonosuke then said that he wanted to stay back to have a conversation with Zunisha. We never got any more about that. We weren't sure if Momonosuke actually had a conversation. And another cool thing that, we missed, of course, because we didn't speculate. We had some speculations, but we weren't firm about it. When Momonosuke said that he met Roger 22 years ago. And in the midst of him saying that, conveniently, we did not see Kinemon's face, because I'm sure his face is probably just like, oh shit, you can't tell them this, right? This is revealing too much. Because at that point, they didn't really fully trust the Straw Hats as yet. So that plays into the timeline as well, because Momonosuke met Roger. Did he meet Roger after Odin got back to Wano? Did Odin stop back in Wano while being on Roger's ship, had his kids, and then left out again? Because Momo's 8 years old, so of course he got sent forward in time, so that's, you know, the 20-year gap. But before that, say he's 8 years old, based on the timeline, and Odin pretty much joining the Roger Pirates for the final voyage, Momonosuke was already born by the time he got on Roger's ship. So I guess that's one thing Oda is leaving us in the dark about, the exact timeline and events of how things happened. It's a secret to it. It's a reason and a rhyme to it as to why Oda is specifically not telling us exactly when things went down. Something that gets lost in this a bit also is the fact that Marco has a relationship with Odin. Marco was a former crewmate of Odin's, and we presume for a while, because even in their discussions, Nekomamushi and Inarashi, they mentioned where they went as well while being on Whitebeard's ship. And it had to be for a while, because they said they encountered so many unknown races, lands, and climates. Races, lands, and climates, meaning they definitely went to Fishman Island. They did say that, and they said they went to an island under the sea with its own sunlight. They visited a sea of clouds floating in the sky. So they were on Whitebeard's ship for a significant amount of time. So I think Marco as well will be able to fill in some of the gaps that we have, because Marco's, of course, someone that was on Whitebeard's crew, had probably a good relationship with Odin, because Marco, from what we see, is someone that's really friendly, and he was the person that was trying to get Ace acclimated with the Whitebeard crew, so I would assume he would be really friendly with Odin. I don't really want to get too deep into the Kozuki clans and like their relation to the Void Century. It's just a few things there that we can, you know, look towards and say, this is probably why Odin is saying that it's a significance in regards to them and the ties to Wano being an isolationist nation. Thinking about Odin and him saying that he's really worried about why the borders of Wano, why it had to be closed. Nekomamushi says that Odin developed an interest in the stones. Even though he was a Kozuki, he didn't make the stones, right? He could interpret them. But based on Wano being closed, him developing an interest, he started looking into them, and that led to him leaving Wano. So in a way, him leaving Wano, going on Whitebeard's ship, of course, Whitebeard, you know, became fond of Odin and Whitebeard. And I'm going to talk about the God Valley incident as well and how that ties into Odin. But him joining Whitebeard's ship was just to get out of Wano and to learn more about the poneglyphs. Whitebeard, we know he had a journey, right? At some point, he had a journey with his crew. They went to a bunch of different places. And then at some point, he decided he did not want to become the Pirate King. He decided he didn't want to go that route. Of course, the idea of a Pirate King back then wasn't as prevalent as it is now, because Roger somewhat popularized that notion, because I guess back then nobody had an idea of what the Pirate King looked like. Nobody had an idea of what that would entail. We know we had somebody who was interested in being the World King in Zebek, but for Whitebeard, he didn't want to become that. He didn't want to do that. So for Odin, being interested in the poneglyphs and wanting to know the history of his country, Roger was directly trying to figure that out as well. And of course, Roger and Odin, they had vested interests because they were both D clan members. Whitebeard was not. So for Whitebeard, it wasn't as personal. He left Whitebeard's ship and joined Roger's. It's pretty clear, like the reason why he left Whitebeard's ship was because Whitebeard was content with where he was, with his family. He traveled the world, and now he just wanted to just be with his crew. I got off my Zunisha point with Momo quickly before I could just wrap that up, but to quickly wrap it up, I think Momo could, some point, Zunisha could come into play again. We're not sure what's going on with Zunisha. We know Zunisha was on its last leg, literally. One of the things they said as well was that Zunisha, they didn't realize, or they didn't basically understand, even though they had been on Zunisha for 1,000 years, that it's a living thing and that at some point living things must die. So I think in a way Zunisha could go out fighting against Kaido and his forces, right? That'll be interesting how they tie it all in, but that remains to be seen. So now to God's Valley and that incident. This was 38 years ago. So 3 years before Odin's flashback. I think Odin's flashback is going to give us not only how he meets all the scabbards and how he, you know, becomes the man that he is, because the Odin that we see on Roger's ship seems to be a lot more wise and mentally in a different space than when he was talking to Yasu. Of course, at that point, he was really young in comparison to someone that had traversed the seas with Whitebeard. By that point, he had learned a lot about the world. So we're going to learn about that. We're going to find out about his dad and that relationship. I believe we're going to meet Orochi as well, because we're going to see how he ties into everything, because I think Orochi is going to show that he was jealous of Odin, because we know that back in the early chapters of Wano, we found out that there was a school of kids and they were teaching them about the legend of Orochi. And one of the things they were learning about Orochi was that he was a dual sword wielder. We know that's what Odin was. So I think Orochi basically stole the legacy of Odin, took it for himself, and you know, the rest is history. We're going to see how it all ties into Kaido. I think that's going to be the climax of the flashback. We're not going to see exactly everything that happened, but we're going to see maybe Kaido and Odin, they're about to clash. Skips away, then it shows us Odin's about to be burned. But again, Odin's words, they're very particular, especially him saying, "My name is Odin. I was born to boil," meaning he's saying that this was my life's legacy, you know, just off my name. That was something that had to happen. Of course, learning the history of the world, I'm sure that changes one's perspective. To the Gods Valley incident, how this is going to tie into that, I believe Oda is going to show us significant things that was happening back then that could lead to the God Valley incident. One of the things could be information that's coming into the country. Of course, it's an isolationist country, but information was coming in some way, because we know Kaido gets information. Of course, Kaido was not over Wano back then, but I'm sure in some way they were getting information. So I'm sure Oda's going to tie that in. Let us know what's going on with the Marines back then. The major news with Garp and Zabak, the things that Zabak was doing to lead up to God's Valley. Another cool thing is if they show actual characters that we know now that existed in Wano back then. Someone that would be cool to show is Fujitora. Like if Fujitora was like one of the daimyo back then, or someone that existed in that time, 30 or 41 years ago. The flashback is almost too perfect to completely neglect God's Valley, because you mentioned that a few chapters before, then you go to 3 years before that incident occurred. I think it'd be the perfect time to go not only into what happened with Odin, but then you transition into the Zabak stuff, because I think Zabak is going to, at this point with Zabak and the significance of his existence, now you have to build him up the same way you somewhat built up Roger as a legend, because he had been erased. Now he's back. You have to somewhat reintroduce like the Pirate King before Roger. Essentially, Roger became the Pirate King because he was the strongest on the season. He had accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish, and he found the One Piece. Zabak at that point was probably the most powerful pirate before Roger. You know, before the entire Gods Valley incident, had the most powerful crew, was probably respected by most pirates because he had like two Yonko under him at the time, and you know, including Shiki, 3 Yonko level characters under him at the time. He was what Roger is before Roger. The only difference is that Zabak was more ambitious than Roger. Roger wanted to become the Pirate King, wanted to learn the secret of the seas and be free. Zabak not only wanted to learn the secrets of the seas, he wanted to become the World King because he was engaging in taboo subjects. I know it's a lot, but I'm super excited for it because I think we're going to get a lot of things that could tie into the end game of One Piece. And the more you think about it, you think about the Kozuki clan and just how they tied into the Void Century, Wano being an isolationist nation. To keep secrets away from the masses, from the public, you would assume that you do this by isolating yourself. You know the secrets that Wano would hold in relation to the Void Century and the D clan, so therefore you isolate yourself from the rest of the world so that these secrets aren't easily accessible. But I'm sure we'll get more on that. I'm excited for the flashback. We should start it in chapter 960. We'll see. But guys, let me know your thoughts. What do you expect from this flashback? How do you think it ties into the Gods Valley incident, into Zabak, and how does Big Mom and Kaido factor into all of it? Do we see anything from Big Mom and Kaido before they join Rocks? How long was the Rocks pirates in existence? Because that's not really clear. The Viz stated that they came together for one big score. It's all a bit murky. But yeah, leave your thoughts below. What do you think? Like the video if you did. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.ace. Check out the Patreon below. You can vote for the next analysis video that I plan on doing on the channel. And yeah, that's about it. Let me know what you think. Again, like, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.